Hi, and welcome to The Parent Equation with me, Aisha Murray. I'm a coach and I primarily support working parents and carers who believe that parenthood shouldn't be a barrier to a successful and fulfilling career. In this podcast series, I chat to inspirational working parents and ask them to share their own experiences of raising children alongside their careers. We talk about the struggles and the moments of joy. And I hope in each episode there's something that can bring you a bit more strength and positivity. So please follow, listen and subscribe on all major platforms. Right, so today I'm chatting to Julian Roberts. Julian is a working father and an executive leadership coach, and he runs his own coaching practice. So welcome, Julian.
Pleasure to be here, Aisha.
It's great to have you on. So just to kick off, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, I guess, your career and where you are on that parental curve, as I believe you have older children?
Yes, I've been riding the curve the last 23 years. I've got a 23-year-old. My career, I was predominantly in the world of sales and commercial, working in pharmaceuticals and then working in the sort of food industry, and worked for organisations like Heinz, Yoplait, General Mills. And in the context of that, up until 3.5 years ago, was doing at moments a lot of travelling as well, so a little bit of globe trotting, certainly around Europe with my job. And then 3.5 years ago, I then decided to set up my own business or business consultancy, and now a coaching practice. So that's sort of my I guess career expose.
And with the travelling, because again, that's quite a different angle. Not all of us have I don't know whether it's pleasure to travel or not potentially, but how did that fit in, I guess, with quite a few children at home?
Yeah, I mean, in the early, I guess my kids sort of grew up in that context that I was either away every now and again for a few days, nights, and so it sort of became a sort of a normality, and so it's a right normality. And so often when they were younger and trying to, because for me, with parenting, it was more about trying to keep that connection with my children and that relationship. And I think one of the things I've learned and all over the time is trying to build that relationship individually with your children at any cost. And obviously work can be a real challenge, and time away, or even now we're all working from home, there's still time that you're doing work. And so to make them feel that they were still thought of and were included in my life, which they were, is certainly when I used to travel to different places like Poland, Portugal, wherever it was. I got three birth children and 3 daughters, and they each time I'd always bring back. My eldest would get a little key ring, and my middle one would get like a little teddy bear with whatever Poland on there, and then my youngest would get a T-shirt. And it became a thing. It just started, and anything where I went, and it came with a little bit of an expectation. It was quite a low cost thing, but it was a nice thing because they then felt part of me being away.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, all of them have become really into traveling as well. So they've got this it created an experience. Dad did all this traveling around, and therefore we're going to do the same as well. So it for me, it made me think of them, and that they felt thought of. So I tried to work that out. And as they were sort of growing up, sort of trying to include them. And it got obviously less as they got older into teenagers. But I think my middle one the other day texted me a picture of this T-shirt which looked really tiny on her, that she wore and made her smile, and so she was wearing it. And obviously it was like probably down her knees when she was younger, but now it's like in it, and it's those little moments of, make you think, that's little special moments.
Yeah, and as you say, it's a connection for them and an inclusion in your life then, but also now looking back for them, I guess the memories they're happy memories. And I suppose when you were traveling, was the mother-father relationship at that point fairly standard in the sense that it was the sort of mother at home and the father away?
Yeah, it was quite traditional in that sense. Yeah, mum was at home, sort of full-time mum, and so I was very traditional in that context. Is how it was. So they had that sort of support, I guess, around in terms of school and everything else. And I would go away and come back. So
And then now you've said obviously your oldest is 23, so you've, as you said, you've ridden the whole parental curve really. How do you think your perspective on career and on work, how's that changed over the years and over their sort of stages of childhood and adulthood?
Yeah, I suppose I was given I didn't have a very good experience as a father to me. My father wasn't great, and it wasn't a great relationship. It just wasn't bad in the sense of abuse and that. It just was none there really. And I remember when my firstborn was born, and it's interesting, often in life, and this is how people sort of almost keep in the cycle, we often go back to, I'm not going to be like X, Y, Z, and we focus on the negative. And we know both as coaches, if you focus on something, it's what you'll get and you will achieve. And so weirdly enough, I wasn't a coach then, but I remember thinking to myself at that point, and it was a future focused positive thing, which is what coaching's all about. I said, I want to be the best father I can be. That's what I had a mantra of that. And so that has always been through my whole life, has been that trying to be the best. I'm not saying I am the best. Obviously, clearly I tell them I am the best.
And they believe you, of course.
And they believe me, of course they do. But that's always been my mantra in everything I do. And it shaped how I interact. And with that has come the whole, making sure I build relationships with them individually. And I think as much as I was away and working, and by that creating those connections, I would, from the time of in the weekend, I would be the one taking them to ballet, sitting there watching them do ballet. And and then my 2-year-old, I actually sit in the class because she was quite nervous. And there I am, this only father sitting there watching them doing ballet and stuff. And I did that for years on a weekend. So I would always make sure my weekends were dedicated to spending time with them.
Yeah.
And then as they get older, I would do, we'd have date with daddy type of thing. Not in a weird way, just in a healthy, separate time. And that could be, picking my 6-year-old up, 10-year-old up from school on a Friday. And she used to like walking, that's the outdoors. So we used to go off and walk with some hot chocolates and some food and spend some time. And it was like quality time. And then, my eldest was really into food. And so I used to take some nice restaurants and things like that. And then my youngest would do stuff with us, McDonald's, or it was just trying to create moments of that relationship. And, and I always remember there's a quote or a saying, but you never get onto your deathbed thinking you'd spent more time at the office. And that was always in my head, and thinking actually, not that I'm child-centered in how I operate, but I was sort of parent focused. But I made sure that I was spending time with them. Yes, I had to work. Yes, I had to do things, but making sure when I didn't, I would spend those times. And that became my thing about using any opportunity to really build that relationship. And, and I've got, a fantastic relationship with my girls, in terms of all the ages they've been through. And there's been tough times, with the transition from, the little cute little 11-year-old to the not so cute teenager, to slightly challenging as they get into adult stage and everything else. And I've got a foster daughter now as well. So that's been my thing really, in terms of mapping that through the sort of time, is maintaining that connection with them.
I think what you say is actually so important, especially when you do have more than one child, is that time for each one individually. And actually, rather than everything happening with both of them, whether that's going out with both of them or they both go to the same clubs, they both go to the same activities, is allowing them to be individuals, and spending time apart so they can grow as individuals, but also us as parents or carers, spending time with them one-on-one, so you get to know that child in I suppose a deeper way.
Yeah, and they share things differently, and it's finding, and and it's that whole thing about finding their love language, isn't it, as well? Whether it is it gifts, is it quality time, is it sort of more hugs and that type of thing, or is it acts of service? It's all that as well, understanding your child, what's best for them, and it's funny because I'm sort of my kids are known that I'm known for my kids that I will always pick them up. And I tell them this, and I said, this is why I do it. And what's my motive behind it is, I say to them, it's for me is to have an opportunity with you. That's genuinely what I do. So when I'm picking my teenager up late at night after a party, who might be had a few little drinks, possibly they shouldn't have had, and just sit in your car and they don't say a word, or they sit in your car and just go on your phone and you don't get an absolute peep out of them, I say it's just my opportunity to spend some time with you. And even I'm just being with you and there's no conversation at all, it doesn't matter. And they know that for me, and I'll pick them up, drop them off, and clubs and everything they've done, pretty much I will be there. And I think, if you're a young parent listening to this and the whole sort of club starts coming at you, and it is a bit of a like every night you're out and you become like the whole sort of taxi service, just it's the reframe. Don't reframe it. You're not a taxi service. It's an opportunity to spend time with your daughter or your son, and even if they don't speak to you, and if you don't speak to them, you're with them, and you have an opportunity just to be with them. And sometimes in life, it's just being with people without doing stuff. And if you reframe it that way, not having a drink in the evening because you got to go and pick your daughter up at 11:30 at night. And if you start thinking, I've got to do this, it becomes a real chore. Then you won't do it. So I'm going to go pick up Gracie. Spend a bit of time with her, see how she is, may talk, may not, come back, and she's enjoyed that relationship and time. So that's how I always tell people that take opportunities.
And also keeping her safe, because if you didn't pick her up, then she might find some alternative way of getting around, which could be.
Obviously, I put in boundaries of, I'm not there to be called on that all the time in that sense. The sense of, she says, 1:30. No, it's going to be midnight. Sorry.
All midday.
All midday, yeah. So there's a boundary with it still. So I'm making sure that I'm not just going to be there at 3:00 in the morning, picking you up. But yes, and that's what I've always endeavoured to do. And I treat them all, my 3 birth children individually as well, in terms of how they interact, in terms of nowadays with technology. And I've got one in Canada, which I FaceTime quite a lot. I've got one at university who has a little bit of FaceTime, but it's more on text. And then I've got one sort of local, and so she's, and she'll hardly text me at all. That's just, she doesn't text anybody like that. That's just the way she is. So it's quite funny, really. But yeah.
So just out of interest, then, this is more just for, because it sounds interesting to me. How is one of them ended up in Canada?
I wondered. Well, we had enough of her, and so we decided to ship her out there.
Ship her off.
Well, no, she went to do things like A levels, and just wasn't for her, which is fine. I think people get this track of you have to do A levels, degree, and all that sort of stuff. And I just said, it doesn't matter. And then a friend of ours, they had an au pair many years ago, and that au pair was from Canada, and that au pair now is a mother of children. And there was some sort of Facebook chat about she was looking for an au pair for 6 months, blah blah blah, and it was an opportunity. And I've always encouraged my girls just to grab an opportunity. And I said to Jess, just go for it, do it. She got on the flight in January. We're looking at nearly 4 years ago now.
Right.
Went out there. First month was fine, and then homesickness massively kicked in month 2 or 3, and was really struggling. And she had an accident. Also, just some hospital. Wasn't great. So And then she came back after 6 months and then went back out again, and then got into working a bit out there, and then realized that she liked the whole aspect of nursing. And then she then started last year to then train as a licensed practitioner nurse.
Okay. Yeah.
And she's now 6 months away. She'll qualify in May. And she's also last year, it's all on her own back. She's now a resident. She's a permanent resident. Right. She applied for it, went through the whole process, and became resident last year. And she'll probably apply for citizenship someday as well.
Yeah.
And so that is incredible. And so that's how she got out there. And she, it's been quite challenging because I meant to see her this year, but obviously because of COVID, couldn't see her. But that's how she got out there, and she'll probably be always out there. She loves it, absolutely loves it. And this is the daughter who I used to take them on hikes and camping and fires and outdoors. Used to whinge, moan, and everything else. And now, she hikes, she does fly fishing, she'll cut fish up and cook over the barbecue. She'll do all those things that I used to love doing. She seemed to hate it at the time, but clearly she obviously does like it, really. So
yeah, and I suppose you have to try. I mean, it's great, I think, for her, and you must be so proud that she took that opportunity with both hands and has made such a great go of it. And also, I suppose, to that point about gutting fish now, which she may not have done in the past, everyone finds their own path at some point when it's the right time for them.
Yeah, exactly. And her passion, and I've always encouraged my girls to acceptance of what they want. Obviously we as parents, we think we know what's best, but often we don't. But encourage them to explore things, experience things. Even special birthdays. I've tended to say to them, why don't we go and do an experience like go to Paris as opposed to buy you some ring or whatever, because actually memories are more powerful and they'll always be there. And so I always encourage them to explore and have a go at something, and not to say it didn't work out, it doesn't work out, it's fine, you tried it. I mean at 19 years old she went to Canada. I mean, it's incredibly brave. I'm incredibly proud of her that she's done that. I mean, I didn't do that at 19. I went to university at 19, but it's not a big thing. People do that. But 19 years old, goes to Canada, and now she's a permanent resident, 23 years old. Yeah.
But you gave her that confidence to do that in her upbringing.
Yeah.
So you can definitely give yourself a pat. Yeah, of course you did. Of course you did. She must have got it from somewhere, and she got it from her upbringing and her, the way that you and her mother would have brought her up. So I think it's fantastic. And we've always said to our kids, because my husband and I both travelled in our youth separately, and although it is a very scary experience, I imagine, for the parent, knowing that your child is, as I was, on the back of a moped in Cambodia somewhere at some point, you have to just let them do it and experience it for themselves and make their own mistakes, hopefully not too dangerously. And they'll, in theory, grow up as better, well-rounded, more sort of cultured people, won't they?
Exactly, absolutely.
Yeah. So you mentioned before you have a 12-year-old foster daughter as well.
Yeah.
And she's then the youngest of your brood.
Yeah.
So when sort of she came into your life, how did your experiences, I suppose, with your older children influence how you brought her up or are bringing her up now?
Yeah, it's very different. And we've had her for 18 months now, and we've got her for long term, which is really good. And my style of parenting is very, very different, has to be very different. And she's from a background of neglect and everything else, and so I have to be more what we call therapeutic parenting, which is not that I was horrible and everything else beforehand, but less about sort of, I don't know the word reward and punishment, but wasn't, you know what I mean? It's a lot more playful, a lot more engaging that way. Obviously, very much more understanding, more empathetic approach. Yeah. So I have to really, and it is hard. It's talk about pivoting as a parent. It's very different style, and obviously, in some sense, with your, not that you expect this, with your birth children, you tend to get something back, and with foster initially, it's like chucking something into a completely empty cabin, and
Yeah.
which is fine, because that's I'm not a parent, I'm not a mum or dad in that sense, and so your expectations are slightly different. But actually, bizarrely, we are starting to get something back. Not that we're doing it for that, we're doing it to provide a safe environment and a place where she can flourish, and everything else, and that's the motive. But yeah, definitely a different style of parenting. So I have to really think.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's certainly challenging me in terms of how I've done it for 20 odd years. Not that I say it was all perfect and right, but that change, I have to really think it through and think, okay, what's going on here? Why is she acting that way? And realize there's some more anxiety or something that's triggered this. And is it because it's Christmas coming up, or is it because she was moved this time 2 years ago that's triggering a moment? So there's a lot more thinking like that. I mean, we all get like that with our kids, and we look for patterns and we work out what's going on. But when it's overlaid with other stuff that you're not even aware of because you've not been in her life before that. So it's very different, but very rewarding and challenging as well.
And also now, I suppose, for you, as you said, you're not traveling anymore, so you now run your own business, and now, of course, as we all are at home anyway, so that would be quite a different setup to when your kids were that age, when you were going away more and having that different relationship with them. So that in itself, I suppose you're physically present more with her.
Yes, I mean, I am, and it's. I mean, for the last 3.5 years, I've been home a lot more and a lot more sort of flexible with that in terms of interaction. Although I tend to be quite reasonably flexible with what I do anyway, because of the fact you travel and stuff. There's a lot of work flexibility comes with that. But yes, no, I'm always a lot in this room. With the map behind me.
The map behind you. For those who can't see, he's got a map behind him.
yes, no. So so she, and it's interesting because obviously I'm divorced as well. I'm recently married 12 years ago, but my youngest now obviously comes here every couple of nights a week. So, and she's brilliant because that dynamic of coming here, and she acts and treats our foster daughter literally like a younger sister, and it's brilliant, and it's wonderful to see. And she literally talks to her like, "Oh, no music," just literally like what sisters do, in a nice, positive way. So that interaction is really good, actually. Yeah. So, yeah.
And how old is she? She's 16, is she?
16, yeah.
16, okay. So she's at an age where she can...
I've got 12, 16, 21, 23.
23. And when you did, so as you said, your three birth daughters, as you refer to them, don't live with you full time. So how did you introduce the foster daughter, or the concept of fostering, maybe before she came, to your other three children?
Yeah, I mean, the whole process of fostering, we started the thought of fostering was sort of 4 or 5 years ago as a thought that we wanted to do, and explored it. And then the whole process, when you're assessed as a foster carer, it takes 9 months or so. Part of that process is the children will have one-to-ones with the assessor as well, to understand their viewpoint, what they think of it, and for them to understand what you're taking on.
Yeah.
And so they all have that. And again, there's moments it must be quite frustrating because it creates some sort of restrictions sometimes and challenges. And other moments it's been really positive. And they know the overarching reason why we're doing it, the bigger picture. I keep going back to the bigger picture of what we're trying to achieve. But no, they've been overall very positive. It's my eldest, obviously, she's in Canada, so lesser impacts. And then my middle one, she went to university last year, so again, less of an impact. And she was traveling as well, so she's only here now and again. It's more my youngest that has but she's just embraced it and is really positive, just gets on with it, comes here and say literally treats her like a sister, really. And it's quite healthy because obviously when you've got 3 children, the youngest becomes this baby. I'm a one of the youngest. I'm the youngest in my family. You almost get treated as though you end up becoming the baby for the rest of your life. And weirdly, having a younger foster daughter coming in, she's suddenly grown up. She grew up in the last 12 months into a different role, because she's now an older sister. She's got a responsibility. She's a role model. She can play a part, and she's changed, and it's changed some sort of dynamics in a really positive way as well, which is, I think, really healthy.
Yeah, and again, it's another great experience for all of your children to be part of. And something I imagine is fairly unusual, I suppose, to encounter families with foster children. I don't know any personally, and I wonder whether in their class how many families with foster children or adopted children there are. So for them, again, it's quite a unique perspective potentially.
Yeah, exactly, and it just broadens their mind on things a little bit more, and that's, and it's been, I think overall there's been moments when it's not a positive experience, but overarchingly it's been a positive experience.
Yeah,
and made them think and not be so much about themselves. And that's, I think, we need to be a bit more think of others in that context.
Yeah. So you've got more children than I have. I have 2. You have 4. So from a time management perspective, I find it hard to fit in time for myself and for sort of the nicer things in life when you've got 2 kids running around. So have you got any insights with your experience of having multiple or more than I have, of how to carve out that time for yourself and really make sure that you look after yourself physically and mentally when you have a lot of other commitments?
Yeah, and I think it's working, if you are with another partner that is working as a team in terms of how does that play out. Often when they're younger, and it's harder when they're littler, because they need a lot more of you around them, so often, I would go to the ballet on a Saturday, take both of them. I had 2 at the time, and then that will give time for the sort of mum to have some time out to do whatever. So it's looking for opportunities where you can then sort of between you share that, and therefore then break it up. And then it's just I think, again, not being so caught up with just spending time on your own. Actually just going for a walk with them can be quite energizing, and depending on their age, and obviously it gets a little bit easier when they get older, in terms of, because when they get to teenagers, they don't want to be with you anyway, because they want to be with their friends.
That is true then, is it? I have got that to come.
No, it is true. And you become less bothered about it, so don't get too caught up about spending time with them, because they won't want to spend time with you. And another tip I used to do, which I only got onto it by watch somebody else do this, is where holidays, obviously great, and obviously we're not doing a lot of holiday at the moment, certainly abroad, is if you're able to financially, and if it works, if you can bring one of their friends with them, it works such a treat. We went to Centre Parks once, and they all brought a friend each, and it meant that my wife and I had lots of time, because they were all together, and they were an age where the eldest was 16, 17, so they could sort of look after each other anyway. It felt safe in that sense. And they had a friend, so they're with their friend, and they're with their other sisters. And then my wife and I then had opportunity to go off and they run, walk, just chill out, because they're all entertained. They don't want you there because they've got their friends. Why do they want their parents? They've got their friends there, and they're at Centre Parks in the swimming pool all day long.
Yeah, all day long.
That's free. And so that's why I started that created time together. And again, just we all know this, putting in special time with your wife, partner, late nights, you have to diarise it.
You do.
You can't just, it'll happen. It won't happen.
No, it won't happen. And you're just too tired to make it happen sometimes. So you do have to put it in a diary, so you stick to it. So the Centre Parks example, so my first instinct was six children on a holiday, not just 3.
It's easy.
And then but then, as you say, you're actually sort of creating or sort of farming them out to their friends, so it takes the pressure off you. So actually it sounds quite daunting, but in reality it probably isn't.
It works a treat. It really does. And I say it worked well. We had, I think, My eldest was probably about 17 at the time, so 17, 15, and whatever, 8, 9, I can't remember 8, the other one anyway. So yeah, I think if you had them under 10, it might be slightly more like a class of children. I mean, that would just be ridiculous without going into year 1 or something. I mean, just no. But I think if they're in the sort of, if you're in the teenager, it does work.
It does
or
work.
Another one is to go with another family who've got kids similar age, obviously, because then because I've had friends where they've hired a big house together, and then the kids are similar age and stuff like that, and then you've they can just go off and do their stuff and play.
As long as you get on with the parents, of course.
Oh, of course, yes, yeah, and I think I also think it's making sure that wherever you go, there's opportunity for your kids to do stuff without you have to be there all the time.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're trying to do, to give you some time out. So you obviously you want time with them, clearly, and that's important. But if you want some time on your own, individually or as a partners together, then look for that. That's why Centre Parks does work really well.
Yeah, it does work very well. And you talked a second ago, I picked up the word you used there was team, and working as a team. So you and your partner, wife, husband, etc. And that's something that my husband and I definitely always say, that as far as the kids are concerned, we are a team, and we have to be on the same page. And sometimes one of us will have to compromise on their belief system potentially to make sure we are still on the same page. But at least outwardly for them, they feel like the message is the same and is consistent from both of us.
Yeah.
And then potentially behind closed doors, you can discuss it. But certainly the outward view is that mum and dad are in this together.
Yeah.
And this is how we're going to approach it. So I think, again, from your perspective, with 3 children to project that to, is that something that was very important to you?
Yeah. And I got divorced 13, 14 years ago. And even, and my ex-wife, it's all amicable and it's worked really well, actually, weirdly, because we're not together. But we even then, when we were obviously separated in that sense, we endeavoured, and we would often meet sort of every couple of months, talk about the kids, talk about what they're doing, any issues. We'd always go to parents' evenings together. Yeah. And we would always be on the same page, and it was more challenging in the sense of, but we'd always, might get a text from so and so about my kids, and I always say to my ex, so is this really going on? And we square off, because obviously kids are very clever, particularly when they're separated, right, to use that as an opportunity to fox the dad and mom and everything else. So we'd always, and I said, my mum didn't say that. Oh, right. And then they started to realise that was happening, so they would never do it. So and even separated, and obviously now with my wife, now we always, throughout the week would always go, make sure we're backing each other up on aspects of things. And because as soon as you have one that's slightly different, or you undermine each other, game over. And if they see a unified front, it's not like you're in a battle, but at times it feels like that. And again, just that team thing it's important to, just think the week, what's happening, what are you doing, what have you got going on, and got this, Zoom meeting tonight for this club, or I've got this going on, I'd like to go for a run, I'd like to do it, and then we just work it around and go, okay, I just need to have a run today at some point, or I need to go for a walk at some point. It doesn't bother me then, long as it's not dark, and then we just work it through that way. So that's the approach. It's that collaboration, isn't it? Because it is important.
And I think we spoke about this actually last time we chatted, for your podcast, in fact, where at the moment, with everybody being at home, we're getting to see each other's lives much more than we would have done if my husband was in the office all day and I was out at work, or I was at home. We wouldn't see each other's lives. But now we're much more cognizant of what goes on in each other's lives on a daily basis, the frustrations, the ups and downs. So in some ways, it's potentially easier to have that teamwork, because hopefully we understand each other's situations a little bit better and can empathise, I guess, a bit better than maybe if we weren't exposed to that pre-pandemic.
Totally, definitely. Yeah.
All right, so we're coming to the end, Julian. It's been so great talking to you, especially with your kind of quite unique perspective with your family setup. And it's, again, not something I sort of encounter very regularly. So it's really interesting to hear it from your point of view. And just if anyone does want to get in touch with you for, I suppose, maybe even some working parent insights, if they've listened to you and sort of can resonate with that, where's the best way to get hold of you?
If you go to my website, which is julianrobertsconsulting.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Julian. It was a pleasure to have you on today.
No, thank you, Aisha. I enjoyed it. Really enjoyed
Great,
it.
good. Thanks. What struck me about chatting to Julian today was his honesty, his openness to talk about his relationships with his father, with his daughters, with his foster daughter. And it's that kind of refreshing honesty that really allows us to connect with each other and connect with each other as human beings. So I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and look forward to seeing you next time.